following program contains mature language and potential spoilers. Viewer discretion advised.
The Marvel superheroes have arrived. Captain America,
Fantastic Four,
Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Woman, the God
Welcome to the Marvel Superhero Podcast. I'm Illegal Machine, and with me is...
Diablo Frank.
And today we're going to talk about I Don't Know.
Yeah, we're kind of winging it this time.
We're winging it.
We did a really good episode last week, and as usual, we're going to fucking just shit out the next one.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like our thing that we do.
It's our pattern.
So I think today we're going to take a look at the movie slate that was recently announced for both Marvel and Detective Comics comics. People were giving DC a bunch of shit because they were like, Marvel, this is how you're supposed to announce movies. But I mean, it was a shareholders meeting. It wasn't a formal announcement. People made it into a formal announcement. So I don't think that's totally fair to criticize DC. Should they have done the whole Steve Jobs walk you through our next, our product timeline?
Wait, are you saying that people were criticizing DC?
Yeah.
That is maybe that was what was happening in the real world.
Right. I'm more.
Whereas in the comics book sphere, all the nerds got a hard on for DC announcing this huge slate. You had all the Batman guys, and they're like, well, DC's going to come up. Marvel isn't the big thing. DC's going to come back. It's not just Batman anymore. And then they introduced this slate. It's like, yeah, booyah, bitches. Now we've got a DC universe. All it was like typeface, mostly default typeface. I think Cyborg got his stupid little fucking gear that they turned one of his letters into. And again, it was just a shareholders meeting. All they did was present some information to shareholders, and all the nerds got stuck in fucking wild over that shit.
It wasn't a presentation. There's nothing to criticize. It was just a shareholders meeting. Marvel actually, they put on the whole thing. Now I can understand you saying, okay, DC should have announced this a little bit grander, but it wasn't like they had this grand announcement where they had all the press come out and then they fucked it up and tripped over themselves. It wasn't that. You're comparing apples to oranges, in my opinion. So I don't think it's appropriate to give DC any flack over how they.
But my view is it's appropriate to give Warner Brothers flack over this, because the thing is, it's basically like, okay, if everything works out the way we want it to, this is what we'll do. This is what we're planning on doing. But that shit's going to change. It's not like fucking etched into stone or anything. It's just a plan.
Yeah.
It's just some ideas. It doesn't really mean anything. Where when Marvel makes an announcement and they give you dates, those movies are going to fucking happen, barring the fucking catastrophe of like the entire economy collapsing or something. I mean, where Warner Brothers is throwing stuff out and they've got all these different people involved with the creation of the movies, and 1 minute you're getting Batman Begins and the next you're getting Jonah Hex and Green Lantern. There's a consistency at Marvel, so you can reliably expect that these movies will continue to do at least well enough to motivate them to continue to make the movies they've announced that they're going to make.
Right, which is why I think DC was their quote-unquote formal announcement, which wasn't really a formal announcement, is perfectly fine, because they don't have... It's not as a sure thing as if the Marvel can do this. They can have Cap and Iron Man come out on stage and put their dukes up at each other. They can do that because those movies have already come out and they're already successful, and these are established actors playing these characters. You can't do that for DC because none of these characters have been in any movies yet.
Except for Superman and Batman.
Batman hasn't even been in a movie yet because now you have Ben Affleck.
Well, I'm sorry. I call major bullshit on that. Until you have a Batman and Robin again, where poor George Clooney gets all this heat for doing the bad Batman movie, even though it's not like Batman Forever was all that great either. But we've had a Batman on screen pretty consistently since 1989. There have been gaps, but you can rely on Batman. You can't really rely on Superman. But there has been a Batman. It's not like Ben Affleck's going to be having this completely different interpretation of the character that's entirely alien and foreign. You put Batman in a movie, you can rely on X number of $100 million in the bank just because Batman's in it, at least for one of them.
I'm just saying that since he hasn't even appeared on screen yet, you can't. It doesn't work as well as doing it with.
He's appeared on screen for like 8 fucking movies, man. Even Batman and Robin that everybody was bashing on, that still made its money back. It made like $150 million.
Look, you're not listening to me. I'm talking about the actors coming out in street clothes and putting their dukes up at each other. To have Ben Affleck come out and stand.
Oh, you mean he's not Batman yet because we haven't seen the movie in which he portrays Batman?
So that's why you can't parade him out on stage because they haven't even come out yet.
Okay, I see what you're coming at now.
So that's what I'm saying. They didn't put on the big. And again, maybe they should have. But to me, it wouldn't have worked like it worked for Marvel.
No, because I agree with you. You can cut DC slack if it's a shareholders meeting that this information is coming out of. Because if these movies don't happen, we didn't formally announce that. That leaked.
Right. And that's all I'm trying to say. That
But at the same time, it gives them a great big safety net since they're totally unproven outside of Batman and a little bit of Superman.
Correct.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, we found a agreement there, but Marvel kind of showed you how to do it right.
Yeah, right. We have an agreement that I was right. Okay, go ahead.
Marvel got it out there. They did their formal presentation. They made a big deal about it. They were willing to, and this was clearly in response to the DC leak. This
right.
was,
for sure.
But it's like they kept going at Marvel and saying, well, where's your female movie? Where's your African-American movie? Where's where are your big announcements? And they said, well, we were actually been in pre-production on this stuff forever.
Yeah.
Here's the slate for the next several years. It's okay because we knew we were going to hit all these marks anyway. We've had very consistent success so far. The top 2 movies of this calendar year are Marvel movies.
They did bring out Black Panther, though, right?
They did.
Who has yet to appear on screen.
This is true. But
damn.
he appears next to the guy who's firmly established as Cap and the guy who's firmly established as Iron Man. So you do have that association there. And also, it's great that, hey, this black hero that we've said we've been wanting to do something with, he's already been cast. And I fucking guarantee you he's in Avengers Age of Ultron. I guarantee he's got a cameo in there.
He's got to be. He's got to be.
Like, he's already hanging out with the guys and everything.
Oh, yeah.
You don't cast a movie that's going to come out, what is it, 2017 that Black Panther comes out?
I believe so.
2018.
2018. Oh, yeah. He's in Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
100% for sure.
And, of course, they're saying, well, where's your female movie? Oh, well, did we not mention that Captain Marvel's going to have a cameo in this flick as well?
Yeah. I'm still not sure how I feel about that.
I feel good about it. The only thing that makes me bummed out is that Count Druncula had a fucking great idea for a Captain Marvel movie. We'll get into that when we talk about the specifics of the movies, though.
Okay.
So what I was thinking we would do, since we're already kind of doing the DC versus Marvel thing anyway, is like, hey, Marvel had this great presentation. DC had a shareholders meeting. Let's actually put these movies head to head. Movies not so much as far as the years go, but in terms of the content.
Okay.
And see who we think would come out as a winner. You got Wonder Woman. That's coming out in 2017, June 23rd, apparently. And then you've got Captain Marvel, who will be coming out the following July, almost the following year that Wonder Woman comes out. Now, this is going to be the Wonder Woman that's New 52. So she's going to be the daughter of Hippolyta and Zeus, the niece of Ares, a goddess of war. And she's going to be dressed in that costume we've already seen. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel, we don't know if she's been cast. If she has been cast, we don't know who that person is. We have not yet seen her in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and she's not really a name brand. She's appeared on a few cartoons, but even in the cartoon verse, she's fairly obscure. They haven't done like a Marvel original movie with her or any shit like that. So she's going to be introduced to the broadest audience she's ever had easily. And in fact, I would say that the Captain Marvel as a concept is going to be introduced to a larger audience because Marvel version of the character has never had any audience penetration. Mass
None.
audience penetration.
I think that this is, I don't know if I want to say by far, but I think by far the riskiest movie on Marvel's slate. I mean, is that fair to say? I don't think Black Panther is really that risky.
Well, it depends on how much of a budget it's going to have.
I would say it would be Captain Marvel's number 1, Ant-Man is probably still number 2, and Black Panther 3 when it comes to pure risk.
The more I hear about Ant-Man, I really don't feel like Ant-Man's a risk at all.
Really?
It's sort of like how Guardians was oversold, I think, as a risk. I hate to say that because it's just like...
it wasn't.
Huh?
That movie was risky as hell.
I tend to disagree because here's the problem. Avengers was risky. I 100% am behind that because nobody had ever tried to do something like that before with that many different characters on a screen, having that work. I mean, even the X-Men movies, those were Wolverine movies with guest appearances by the X-Men. Where Avengers, all those characters had to balance out one another, even though Iron Man was the lead actor, the lead character in those movies, but everybody got time on the screen.
Okay, so I think there's a difference between risky as in potential for bomb and risky as in a difficult way to make a movie good. Avengers is hard to make good. Avengers was a sure thing hit, money-wise.
Well, that one cost a fair amount of money,
Captain
though.
Marvel could end up being a perfectly good movie. I think there's a good chance nobody would go see it. Yeah. That's where I'm saying it's risky.
Well, and I'll stay with you on that, but here's the thing. With Guardians was a sci-fi movie in the vein of Star Wars with a lot of pop culture referencing. That isn't a risky-sounding movie if you were to make that at any other studio. Then you combine that with the Marvel brand that it had hit after hit after hit, and Guardians just looks like a home run. And having seen the movie and having seen how audience-friendly it was, in my criticisms, that's part of my problem with the movie is it was so audience-friendly. It was almost like it was just on their knob. It was just sucking the audience's knob. And that's one of the things I disliked about Guardians is it was so like us, and it got on my nerves after a while. So I don't see that as big of a risk. Where I agree with you on Captain Marvel. Female superheroes have not been an easy sell. Female action heroes have not been an easy sell. There are some exceptions to that in terms of financial breakthroughs and artistic breakthroughs, but it's nowhere near the sure thing that other superhero type movies are. There's no guarantee that the boys are going to want to see the girls kick ass.
Right.
So I agree with you that Captain Marvel is much more risky, where everything I'm seeing on Ant-Man, and we'll have to get to that when we get to the Ant-Man section, makes me think that that's an extremely safe movie because it's so closely tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So that's what I'm... Okay, so I don't want to...
But
I don't want to rehash Guardians of the Galaxy, but your first 2 points about one, because it's a sci-fi movie that makes it safe, I think that's totally false. I think having some sci-fi movie in space does not guarantee anything anymore. And then 2, the fact that it's closely tied to the Marvel Universe, it ain't closely tied to the Marvel Universe. I told you that I had people in my office who were like, I had no idea that was a Marvel movie. They had no clue because there was so little association with the actual Marvel Universe in that film, which is one of the reasons why I was so surprised that I just thought for sure that movie was going to go back to Earth at some point, and they never did. So anyway, I disagree.
Okay.
But I will agree, like you said, I don't know if dudes are going to want to go see Captain Marvel. Now, maybe if it turns into a Captain Marvel / Star-Lord movie, right?
Oh, God, please. I hope that doesn't happen.
You know what I mean? Like
the way that they basically, Captain America was Captain America and Black Widow.
right.
That was not Captain America's movie on his own.
Or Cap 3 is going to be Cap and Iron Man. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have...
Well, Cap was the weakest performer of the previous slate of movies, so they've been giving him team-up opportunities, giving him an opportunity to contrast against other heroes, and clearly Black Widow, I would say she was damn near equal, and in some ways, I think she came off better than Captain America in his own movie. Like that last fight with the Winter Soldier was not terribly impressive to me.
No, but I need to see it again. We got to watch that again.
Well, I would have, but again, they fucked us on the special features. And now I don't want to see it.
So let's get back to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, I think it's going to do just fine.
Yeah, that's just because here's the thing with Wonder Woman: she's got that name brand recognition.
Right.
The guys who saw the Superman movie are going to see the Wonder Woman movie, I think, just because for no other reason, it's the first one and it's tied into the Batman and Superman universe.
Correct.
So I think she's pretty safe. But I do think that if Gal Gadot is not strong in Dawn of Justice, it will very much hurt the Wonder Woman movie.
I think that by the time Captain Marvel comes out, if like I kind of think they're going to do, they're going to patch that in to the Guardians universe, which I mean, maybe not. Maybe she will be out of the Avengers movies.
Count Dracula had this idea for Captain Marvel. She was Miss Marvel before she was Captain Marvel. And you kind of have to establish all that stuff with the Kree to get to her origin, unless you just decide you're going to radically alter her origin, which is certainly a possibility. But he had this idea that I thought was great, where you introduce Captain Marvel and you set up his whole story, and then either like halfway to 3/4 of the way through the movie, you fucking kill Marvel and you switch it up, and it turns out the hero of the movie is the girl. And I thought that was a fantastic idea because it would be great to have one of those second act twists going into third act. And it's a way of selling the movie because you don't sell it as the female action hero movie. You sell it as the sci-fi movie. You've got a male and female co-lead, and then the male collapses and you let the female carry the rest of the movie. Bait and switch, but in a good way.
Okay, so now that I'm looking at the timeline again, it immediately follows Infinity War Part 1. So it's definitely an Avengers movie.
Yeah, that's why I'm not as confident that Captain Marvel is going to be in Age of Ultron as I am.
I don't think she is either. I think she may pop up in Guardians 2 and then Avengers Infinity War 1, right?
Well, maybe if they see, and it's funny too, because talking about Count Dracula, he was asking a while back, well, who do you have as the villains for Guardians of the Galaxy 2? And I said, well, you get the Kree in there. And he's like, the Kree? But yeah, you got to introduce all that.
I think.
Did you see that as well?
I think I was the one who was like,
well, he was also the Kree. And the thing is, you can use Guardians to set up all that Kree lore, just like they have already set up the Celestials in the first Guardians movie. You don't have to spend a ton of time with it, but you set up the Kree lore in there, and then you can go into Captain Marvel a little bit more fresh. And especially if you have Marvel in Guardians, and then he falls, and then you have Captain Marvel. So you can still make it work. I just like it better in the context of a single movie.
But see, that's where I think that Marvel's too smart for that. I think that they want to make sure that they've got Captain Marvel set up to win before it comes out.
So you've already established her before she even hits the screen.
If all that stuff goes down, it'll go down in Guardians 2 or one of the other movies that's preceding it.
Okay.
Which, if that's what happens, it gets knocked down on my risky list.
Oh, certainly.
But
certainly.
if they're gonna try and make this in some way self-contained, which I don't think it is, seeing how it comes out so close to Infinity War 1.
And we have confirmation that she's in Infinity War 1. So she's that, or a version of Captain Marvel will not be introduced in the Captain Marvel movie. That character will be pre-existing by the time that first movie comes out.
So I think Wonder Woman is still going to be the bigger movie.
Absolutely. It's going to have a bigger budget. They can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. But if they even put out a serviceable movie, there's enough of a fan base that wants to see a Wonder Woman on screen, any Wonder Woman on screen, that we'll go see that movie. I'm very much an outlier where I've pretty much already decided I'm just not going to go see that.
In your whole life.
Yeah. Huh?
You're pretty much an outlier in
all
life.
things in life. Yeah. True that. But I think that the majority of people are so happy that a Wonder Woman movie is getting made that they're going to go see it, give her that one chance. She has to really suck. And I've seen Gal Gadot and other things. I'm not impressed by her, but she's not someone who immediately turns you off either. So she should be fine.
But here's the deal. I still think that even if Captain Marvel is close to Wonder Woman, it's still a win for Marvel, right? Because Wonder Woman is like, it's supposed to be a sure thing. Whereas Captain Marvel making money is gravy. That's all great. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is all gravy. Mm-hmm. It's not even a big character. They've done nothing. There's no continuity in it. They haven't spent decades. They just were like, well, let's just throw this thing out.
If the movie comes out and it bombs, oh well, we just won't make another Captain Marvel movie. If a Wonder Woman movie came out and bombed, then you've lost one of the major characters you've got in your IP collection.
Like when Hulk bombs, that's bad.
Oh, yeah, because, again, even after his showing in Avengers, even after all this love the character has gotten, and the fact is, those movies really did not bomb. It bothers me when people say those movies bombed. They just underperformed. Hulk did not make enough money to warrant turning that into a franchise. They would have been a much riskier proposition to do a Hulk 2 at Universal at that time. Incredible Hulk did worse than the other Marvel movies. It still made its money back and some more. Sure. I think it's done fairly well on DVD and Blu-ray. So it's not like any of these movies have been major failures. It's just they haven't been strong enough to justify going into another movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially when you can use Hulk as a draw for Avengers to help make that a sure thing. You haven't diluted people's interest in the character with a solo movie. So.
And you know what's going to be crazy? So that comes out in July, right? Captain Marvel. We're going to see little girls in Captain Marvel outfits running around for Halloween.
Have you seen
huge win for Marvel?
Do you know what Captain Marvel looks like now?
No clue.
Because you know what Warbird / Miss Marvel looked like.
Yeah.
She was running around in the black thigh highs. You want to see right quick? Pretty good looking suit, huh?
Yeah.
And what's great about that too?
Are you not recording?
Huh? Yeah, we're recording again.
Oh, you did?
I paused it and then I restarted it again. Yeah, we're recording again. What I like about this is you look at the old Miss Marvel suit with the thigh-high boots, and she had a lot of skin. This suit, it doesn't show a lot of skin. It's just a heroic outfit. It suits her body as a woman. She has breasts. She has hips. But there's nothing sexualized about it. It's all a uniform. It's all about being a superhero. Whereas if you put a girl into the current Wonder Woman costume, any Wonder Woman costume for the most part, unless it has like a long skirt where you're aberrant from the comics, you're going off in a different direction. You can't not sexualize woman to a large degree. Where with Miss Marvel, you kind of have to go out of your way to sexualize her because the suit isn't made to be. That's not the goal of the suit. Is to tantalize. The goal of the suit is to show a heroic female.
It looks good. I like the collar.
I really like the suit. I think when I wanted to read the book when it was first coming out because it had an Ed McGuinness cover. And she had her hair pulled back in such a way that made her look like she had a little faux hawk going, which was cute. But she just looked so good. It's like, man, I want to read that book. And then I looked at the interior pages, and the art was fucking rancid. So I just couldn't fucking do that shit. But those covers, and then later on in the series, this is a Jamie McKelvey image we're looking at right now. It's a great looking suit. It's especially for a female hero. So often the suits are designed. I think a lot of female hero suits are under-designed. They don't have enough going on with them. They're overly simplified. And I like how this one has got enough going on to where she looks like she can carry a book. She doesn't look like she's a supporting character in a man's book. She looks like she's the lead character. She looks like a major primary hero.
And I dig they kept the hip sash and everything. It looks good.
Yeah, it's still you call back to the original Captain Marvel. I mean, not the original, but the Marvel Captain Marvel, and you call back to her Miss Marvel days.
Yeah, they probably could have kept the boots though.
But the thigh highs,
it's fine.
You know,
it
you
looks
can't.
good.
Yeah, you can't not be. And that's one of the things. Like with Dave Cockrum, he used to always want to give his male characters thigh high boots, and it's sexy. Even though they're guys, it's still sexy to have thigh-high boots. There's unless you're like a fisherman wading into a bayou, there's no way to not be thinking about how close the proximity you are to the goodies when wearing those kind of boots.
Right, yeah. This conversation is making me uncomfortable. Let's move on. Let's move to a different movie.
Okay. So the thing is, just to establish, we're thinking the Wonder Woman's going to be the winner in this fight. Maybe not in terms of quality, but as far as the likelihood of financial success, that's one of your closest things to a sure bet that DC has, I think. I'm pretty strong about that. We've waited way too long for a Wonder Woman movie. Just putting Wonder Woman's name on there and having a reasonable approximation of what people expect Wonder Woman to be, she's running around with a sword, chopping up mythological beasts. It's going to fucking make money, man.
Okay.
It's not like Clash of the Titans or Hercules or something. And it's part of this shared universe. It'll do fine. So now we gotta put black guys against each other. You got Cyborg. And Cyborg's fucking in 2020. And let me tell you something. There's this cosplayer named Ian Maggetto, I think, or Maggetto, something like that. Anyway, he's a cosplayer, and he makes these videos that run on Bleeding Cool, which is a comic book news / rumor site. He gets on my damn nerves. Like, whenever I try to watch one of his videos, he spouts a lot of just ignorant-ass opinions, very forcefully, like with no real basis. And he did one on the Black Panther, and he was trying to say that he thought that Marvel had only announced the Black Panther movie because DC had announced the Cyborg one, and they wanted to one-up DC. And he was trying to say that, we should have had this movie ages ago, and that they only finally whipped this into production recently. And so I said, first I said, you're being an asshole, in a nice way, on his little YouTube channel. And that, no, this has been in the works for a long time, and Cyborg's a lousy character who's never been able to carry any kind of book at all. I think the longest run he's ever had was a 4-issue miniseries as a solo character. And just, chill out with your ridiculous theories. So then he comes back and he's like, well, if you can show me one piece of proof, then I'll apologize. So what I did, I actually wasted an hour of my life compiling a list of articles that are available readily on the internet through a goddamn Google search, going back to 2007 when Marvel first approached John Singleton about making the movie. And I also mentioned the fact that when Marvel was financing Marvel Studios, one of the characters that they had to put up as collateral was the Black Panther. Basically, their entire movie slate to this point has been those characters they put up as collateral to get the financing, the $500 million to make Marvel Studios happen. And so what does he do? And I also call him out as saying, because his that particular video had nothing but negative reviews. He's got more thumbs down than thumbs up. And I'm like, look, you need to not spout off these ignorant opinions without backing them up, and then demand that people who are commenting on it give you the information that you should have fucking researched in the first goddamn place.
Yeah, that's super
so what
lazy.
happened? Motherfucker deleted the comment. And it was fucking paragraphs of this shit where it's just fucking schooling his ass. He just fucking deleted it. So I just want to call that motherfucker out, because that's part of the fucking problem is you got guys like that who are talking all kinds of shit and can't fucking back it up. And by the way, fuck Cyborg. Black Panther is one of the best goddamn superheroes on the planet. Batman has been stealing shit from Black Panther for fucking years. You look at Batman comics from the 1960s and you look at Black Panther comics from the 60s, and you will see that Batman became Black Panther. And for all these years, you've had these guys who are like, Black Panther's just Marvel's Batman. He was in the black suit before Batman. Yeah, he had the fucking years. But his whole story, his whole attitude, the way he is a strategist who will even go up against other heroes, that was established in his first story. Batman, yeah, he had his little gadgets and the utility belt, but the mentality where he will strategize against his own people, where he's that paranoid and that what's the word I'm looking for? But he who's looking at the long game in that manner, that's something that was established for the Black Panther from the very beginning. And Batman writers have stolen that aspect from Black Panther, and now when you're trying to compare the two, you tend to defame Black Panther when he was there first. He just didn't get the credit for it. Black Panther's a great fucking character. That's why Marvel's been trying to make a movie with that guy forever. The first Marvel movie to break the streak of bad movies from that company was Blade. They knew that shit. They've been wanting to do a Black Panther movie forever. It's going to be fucking awesome. I can't wait to see that movie. And I don't think a Cyborg movie is ever even going to fucking come out. They're going to announce that shit. The character isn't going to fucking win over audiences. He's just a fucking Iron Man wannabe anyway. If they want to make that character any good at all, they've got to turn him into steel. So, fuck Cyborg. Black Panther for the win.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just let that simmer for a bit, folks. Are you ready? All right, let's go ahead and continue the podcast. So here, I think that Black Panther is going to be fantastic. I think they're going to pull a lot of the Priest stuff too, which is so good.
Yeah, please don't. I understand why the Black Entertainment Television cartoon was based on Reginald Hudlin's run, since Reginald Hudlin at that time was president of Black Entertainment Television. But that is not the run you copy. Or even if they do and they just fix some of the logical errors and the just flat out bad writing of that run, it's still basically Priest's run. But Priest is the guy you go to. That's the really smart writing where they're just nailing not only the main character, but a strong supporting cast too. Queen Divine Justice, Everett Ross, all those characters, the Dora Milaje. There's so many great concepts in the Priest run to mine for a movie that would just work fantastically in a visual medium.
2, YouTube offers a lot of great stuff. YouTube is just below carrier pigeons and smoke signals as a form of legitimate communication. Like, YouTube comments are the worst, and especially when they're in response to the types of videos that you like. I don't understand people who they'll basically do YouTube reviews and blogs where they just get in front of I'm gonna get in front of my webcam, I'm gonna talk to you. That's bad. It's like nails on a chalkboard, and then when you get into the comment section below it's like cavemen would be like, what? This is what we have evolved to?
But that's where you have that paradigm shift, though, because that video I was complaining about, you had some fairly intelligent criticisms underneath it. So you know you've gone wrong when people can write in intelligible sentences and are taking your ass down.
I'm just saying the whole thing is just bad.
I can't argue with that.
Okay.
I've read YouTube comments. I've received YouTube comments, and they're not good.
No, they're not good. So Cyborg, I agree with you. I don't think Cyborg is ever going to come out.
Well, I mean, he doesn't even really make sense. His parents are super scientists. He rebels by becoming a jock. Then he gets partially eaten by this protoplasmic creature that his parents accidentally access through one of their devices. And so his daddy makes him robot parts so that he can run around and do shit. The end. That is not a fucking compelling character. He doesn't work on his own shit. He's not a fucking genius. He's not a millionaire. I don't even know how the fuck he affords to continue to operate. Whenever something breaks down on him, he runs the fucking Star Labs and somebody has to work on his ass because he's too dumb to do it himself. Where the fuck is the appeal of this guy? He's fucking practically racist himself. Marv Wolfman, his co-creator, made a point of having him talk street. And then one time he sort of kind of went off to the side and said, well, I talk like that because my community, I'm actually very intelligent.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I hate Cyborg. And not only is he a really bland character, I kind of see him as racist. It really does feel like two guys who aren't black created this black character and put a lot of shit on him that just makes him icky to me.
So I don't want to talk about Cyborg anymore, but I am going to propose these 2 questions. 1, are you going to foresee some sort of racial uprising, not uprising, maybe the right word, some controversy around the fact that they're going to be putting out a movie called Black Panther?
Oh, because of the relationship to the Black Panther Party?
Right.
Well, I assure you that Fox News is going to jump all over that shit.
It's going to be crazy, which I think is awesome. I think it's awesome, right?
Well,
it's going to be great.
The thing about that is that I love, I have a lot of respect for what the Black Panther Party did in the 60s and early 70s. They're really not very relevant anymore. And it's sort of one of those things where you might as well be bringing up the AIM, American Indian Movement. It's as relevant to our times as the Black Panther Party. So how do you try to I remember weren't they making a big deal about Black Panthers about 10 years ago?
Yeah,
that fucking mattered anymore.
I mean, but remember there were protests against the Harry Potter movie.
But it's going to be stupid shit.
It's stupid shit, but it's going to happen. So I think that's awesome because that means that the movie matters, in my opinion.
Well, I'm just happy that if it brings it some extra attention, and turns the screws on the right people who fucking deserve it, if they're going to get uptight over shit like that, go for it.
So okay,
and I'm just glad Marvel isn't big fat pussies who are going to try to run from that.
Right. Point 2. Let's not talk about Cyborg. Let's say then, what character should Detective Comics have made a movie out of?
What do you mean, like African American characters?
Yes.
It's tough because here's the thing. I want to cover Black Panther material on the podcast.
Jon Stewart?
Yeah, absolutely, Jon Stewart. Oh, if Jon Stewart is in the Green Lantern in the next set of movies, they're morons. Jon Stewart should have been the Green Lantern in the Ryan Reynolds movie. The fact is, most people who knew who Green Lantern was going to, hearing about that movie, knew him from Justice League, where he was Jon Stewart. And you would see comments on the internet. You'd hear, Facebook was all over that stuff, where all these people were like, what the hell's going on with Green Lantern? Why isn't he black? Why is he a white guy? So that's one of the ways they dropped the ball in a big way. There are so many engaging black actors they could have gotten for that movie, and you ended up with Ryan Reynolds miscast as Hal Jordan. The Green Lantern movie they've talked about doing as a combo with The Flash, and it's not even on their ridiculous projected schedule. You've got to have a black actor in that role. There's no way around it. Because he would be one of the most powerful members of that team. It looks great. Just the complexion, the green and black costume with someone with darker complexion, it looks good. A black guy can pull that costume where a white guy can't. So it'll blow my mind if they're stupid enough to go make the same mistake twice and miscast that character.
What about Martian Manhunter? Or is it not count because he'd just be in makeup?
That's a problem that people have had, is that if you cast a black actor as that character, he's still not an African American.
Unless when he's in John Jones form, he's,
But even still, you've got a character who was established years ago as a white guy. I've got no problem with that. I 100% say get a black guy in there. When I fan cast that character, it's always a black guy. The problem is one of the reasons why you get a black actor is you want to connect to the African American audience. And African Americans don't connect to Africans. They don't connect to British black people necessarily. They want one of their own people to be a hero, to have that level of power, which works for somebody like Jon Stewart. But with John Jones, as much as I would like that character to be,
he'd just be an alien.
He's still just a Martian. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's
down with that too.
Yeah, the cultural context is fucked up.
So we're saying that DC screwed and Black Panther wins.
That's the thing. Well, like Black Panther, one of the reasons why I was holding off on Black Panther, in fact, I was going to try to get us to look at Blade. That's where I was trying to steer things toward with Halloween. I wanted to do that Tomb of Dracula episode to get the Tomb of Dracula portion out of the way and then jump into Blade stuff. He was going to be our black guy because we got to have a black guy on our as far as our subject matter. We got to have at least one prominent female in our subject matter that recurs. That's like one of our regular characters.
Yeah.
And with us, inevitably I wanted to cover those Blade movies, so it made sense to let's go ahead and get to Blade.
The Blade movie,
right? There's 3 of them.
Nope.
The second one is good.
No.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Not
anyway,
go watch it.
Okay. So that's one of the reasons why I was kind of pushing back on Black Panther. But another reason is one of the people who came to our shop, who I won't name just because I don't know if he'd want his name out there, and we tend to use pseudonyms around here. But there was one guy from our shop that I had been in contact with within the last few years who introduced me to a lot of Black Panther material. He loaned me his run of the 70s series by Don McGregor and Billy Graham. And I would love to have at least, if you're going to have to talk about Black Panther, it'd be nice to have a black guy involved, and I don't have anybody to draw in. I tried to draw him in, but I don't think the email address I had was good anymore. But one thing that he used to always talk about at the shop, because he was a hardcore Marvel guy, and I at that time was a hardcore DC guy, so we'd have our little disputes. But one point that he made that I had trouble saying anything against is that Marvel got into diversity earlier on with better, stronger representations for longer. So when he was a kid growing up in the 70s and he wanted to read comic books, he could read Luke Cage, he could read Black Panther, he could read about all those, Iron Man eventually, although by that point he would have been probably his teens or later. Where at DC, all you had was Black Lightning, and Black Lightning fucking sucks. Even today, DC's slate of non-white characters is not the greatest. So, yeah, I kind of go, Cyborg. But, yeah, Cyborg is actually one of the best guys they've got, which is a horrible thing to say. Yeah. It's damning thing to say.
Which is why I proposed the question, because the first thing I thought of was,
Green Lantern. Green Lantern is
who else do they have to do? Obviously, Green Lantern's the obvious one.
Personally, I'm a big fan of Vixen.
Well, I should say Green Lantern's the obvious one because it's the only one. Right? Isn't that what we're saying? I mean,
that's Steel, but they made a Steel movie, and boy, that wasn't so good. And as much as I love Steel, I love John Henry Irons. Great character.
Whereas with Marvel can go Black Panther. They could have gone Power Man.
Mm-hmm. They're going to. He's on the Netflix series.
War Machine. I mean, right? War Machine's
the first black prominent character they've had in their cinematic universe.
And War Machine is so easy too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you put him in the armor in a commercial, blowing people away with hand cannons, and that movie's going to make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So. I know is not.
But here's the thing with War Machine, though. War Machine is directly derivative of Iron Man. He is the Black Iron Man. But with Black Panther, he's Black Panther. He's not derivative of
He's
anybody.
not derivative of anybody.
Whereas with DC, like Steel, I love John Henry Irons, but he was running around in a Superman uniform. He was a replacement
Superman logo on his chest.
and he's basically a combination of pretty, obvious combination of the main Avengers. He's got the personality of Captain America, he's got the intelligence of Tony Stark, and he's got the hammer and the cape of Thor. It's very easy to trace his lineage. He owes a great debt to a bunch of white guys. If you're going to do a movie with a black hero, you want to have a guy who can stand 100% on his own.
Yeah, you could not have Steel carrying the hammer around while Thor's running around in billion-dollar Avengers movies.
Well, and it doesn't
God,
help
what a bad
that-
look.
And Steel is one of the worst superhero movies ever made too. I mean, I love that character, and I don't think I made it through that movie. On this run up, it's Black Panther by a mile.
Yeah. By a mile plus, I'm excited for that movie. Like I'm genuinely.
God, I'm so excited for that movie. Could you imagine the incredible visuals that'll come out of that? Because it's kind of a sci-fi movie. It's hard to avoid that because Wakanda is so much further technologically advanced than the Western world. You can't not make that a sci-fi movie, and it's going to the colors and the tech and the juxtaposition of cultural landmarks. It's just I can't wait to see that.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Now let's do a team one. Suicide Squad versus Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Here's the thing about Suicide Squad. Of the slate that has been announced, to me, that sounds like one of the most interesting movies. Because the Suicide Squad's already been established in television, in animation. People who are geeks, at least, or who are geeks beyond just straight-up comic book geeks who just are into the shows, they know what that concept is. Are you familiar with Suicide Squad?
Let's start telling me, and I'm sure it'll come back.
You had a woman, Amanda Waller, called The Wall. Big black chick based on Nell Carter. She works for the government, and what she does is she sets a program, Task Force X, that recruits supervillains from out of prison to send them on deadly missions for the government. If they make it through the missions, they're freed to go off and be supervillains again. If they don't, they die, and too bad, one less supervillain on the earth. So most of your major DC villains have been part of the Suicide Squad at one point or another, but really they focus on the lesser ones, the minor ones, the guys who fight, especially Firestorm villains were always in Suicide Squad because they shared a writer. And through shows like Smallville, this concept has been introduced to mass audiences, and they're looking to spend a fair amount of money. They're talking to some really interesting, famous people: Ryan Gosling, Will Smith. I can't remember who some of the other ones are, and they're be playing characters like Harley Quinn and Deadshot, and these are all fucked up characters, psychologically twisted. That could potentially be a very dark movie. And while I'm not one of those kids who thinks that dark equals good, sometimes it's nice to know that you can go dark. Where Marvel has avoided going too much in that direction, one of their defining characteristics has been they're lighter and funnier than, say, the Batman movies. But Suicide Squad would be really cool because that's your more adult movie, your more teen and up-centric movie, where to my mind, Guardians was very kid-friendly. There were aspects that were maybe a little bit questionable that parents might have some issues with, but for the most part, you've got Groot, you've got Rocket Raccoon, you've got a lot of stuff that plays to the kids. So you have a strong dichotomy. You have a contrast between those two worlds and how well they would work. Of course, the Guardians have been extremely well established in their first movie. Yeah. So it's not really fair. So instead of looking at the financial aspects in terms of creativity, which one do you think has the better artistic potential?
Suicide Squad.
You do? And just based on what I said, or do you have recollections of them now?
No, based on what you said, because I think, more based on what I think is going to happen with Guardians. I think Guardians 2 is going to be big time setup for Infinity War. It's going to have that cloud looming over it.
Where it's like Iron Man 2, where you just know they're going to pack a bunch of shit in there that maybe will hurt the reception and the enjoyment of the movie.
Maybe. I hope not. And I just don't know, we don't know who, and they may be setting up Captain Marvel. You know what I mean? I just feel like they're going to be using Guardians 2 to spin out a bunch of people, which is going to hurt it. Whereas Suicide Squad, it can be its own movie. It could be like Guardians 1.
And I get the feeling, too, that if you're going to make a Suicide Squad movie, you're making the one movie. And you can go from there. You can spin off some of those villains and other stuff, but you're not immediately looking at Suicide Squad 2. You're not immediately looking at what we're going to tie this one into. It's enough that if you've got, say, a Batman villain in the mix or something, that's enough of a tie-in to be comfortable.
Yeah. So I think that honestly, the concept sounds pretty easy. It sounds really easy to make a good movie. Of course, I've said the same thing about Punisher for decades.
Yeah, how do you fuck up Punisher?
I don't know how do you fuck up Punisher? Talk about an easy, simple movie, and nobody can do it. I don't understand. So
I do have a movie in my brain for the Punisher, though, of how to do the Punisher movie and make it work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Me too.
And so does probably a whole bunch of other people, and we're not seeing that movie anywhere near a screen.
Haven't seen it yet. And I gotta tell you what, idea not too complicated, but so I don't get it. But so yeah, I think that just the concept around Suicide Squad and the fact that you can pull a few. I mean, if you did Harlequin, you could do any of those villains, and I think that it would get a good buzz going, and people would go see it.
I was disappointed with how kid-friendly Guardians was. Drax, while I enjoyed the literalism of that character, I don't feel strong emotional connection to the individual characters in the Guardians. I thought that was a fun movie as a group of people, but I haven't spun off where each one of those individual characters means a lot to me. Where Guardians can have, Suicide Squad can have like one fucked up, cool, twisty character that I can latch onto that I didn't find with Guardians.
Guardians 2, I'm telling you, Guardians 2 is going to be really difficult. They could really screw up with Guardians 2. Whereas Suicide Squad seems to me like, I don't know how you... I mean, it may just be that people... It may be difficult for people to understand what it is, like that it is tied in with the DC movies to get a little bit of pickup from that. Because I think if they try and sell it all on its own, and maybe it won't do so well. But as long as they can make sure that they hint to everybody that, hey, this is a DC movie.
Well, all you really have to do is throw in one Batman villain.
Yeah, you just got to throw in one Batman villain.
And one thing that's interesting, too, is DC's got this parallel television universe. Televistic universe? I don't know how you want to call it. But they are just cranking out villains on these shows. They've got Arrow and Flash now. And the Flash I find interesting because they keep showing off these Firestorm villains instead of Flash villains. And I think there's something to that because a lot of the Firestorm villains were part of the Suicide Squad, as I mentioned. So you can set them up in television so that people have an awareness of those characters and then stick them into the movie and have the cinematic version that really blows the doors off.
So I'd say that's a win for DC?
I don't know. In terms of artistic, like I said, the setup, I would say that I'm more excited to see of all, and I'm not very excited about the DC slate, but I have more interest in Suicide Squad than I have in Guardians 2, to be honest.
Okay. I think we're good with that.
Mac and I went on for about 2 hours like that, so instead of putting that all out there at once, we're going to go ahead and break that up into an episode or two. So we'll revisit that next week. Tell you a little bit about my week, though. Started a new job that's got me getting up at 4:50 in the morning and pretty hectic pace on the thing. Friday night, I had to work over. And then on Saturday, I was running around setting things up for my girlfriend for her to take her work-related trip out of town for a week. Late in the afternoon, I went ahead and took a nap, got up, had dinner, and then I came upstairs to set everything up to have a special recording session with Rob Kelly of the Aquaman Shrine and Fire and Water podcast fame. But unfortunately, in the midst of all that running around, I managed to forget which direction the Earth rotates in. I had it in my head that I was an hour ahead of Rob instead of an hour behind him. So I got emails from 2 hours before letting me know that I'd stood the poor guy up and I feel like a schmuck. So I didn't think an email apology was enough. I wanted to go ahead and do an audio apology. Sorry, Rob. I hope we get the chance to work on that again in the future. I suck. And let's carry on to the mail.
Google Plus followers for the week, Ultraverse Network. WordPress blog followers, Charlton Hero. Is it Charlton Hero or Charlatan Hero?
I believe that's Charlton. I think he's named for the 60s comic book company.
Okay, not Carlton Hero from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Or Charleston Hero, the old folks dance.
That would be good, though. All right, Twitter follows, David Fiore, David Puglisi. I butchered that. I apologize. Guano Man, Heather Dorcas, Jess Camacho, John Darrell Winston, is it Solus Comics?
I believe it's Solus, yeah.
Solus Comics. Surly Punk Hulk, Time Travel.
Twitter favorites, Alexis Guerreros, I think, or something along those lines. Butchered that one. Ange, Baltimore News, Carl Pinkert, CJ, Count Druncula, David Puglisi, Ilperin, Eternal Rage, Future Primitive, Infinity Watcher, Investor Bots, Jason Martinez, Keith G. Baker, Martin Gray, Professor Riptide, Radio vs. the Martians, Richard C. Meyer, Sean McLaughlin, Sin, Time Travel, and WordPress News.
Retweets, Ange, David Puglisi, Eel Perrin, Eternal Rage, Future Primitive, Keith G. Baker, Martin Gray, Professor Riptide, and Sin.
Jason Martinez let us know that he's listening to the Annihilation Nova episode, NYCC 2014 FYI, and Tiger the Werewoman.
Randy Caldwell said, Tigra, I'm still dealing with repercussions of learning that pilgrimage cat people caused the Black Plague. It is genius. And I agree 3,000,000%. It was absolute genius. I've come all the way back around on that, if we've discussed. I need to work on acquiring more 1970s Marvel stuff. I began reading Marvel during the 1980s in the Byrne Perez era of Avengers. I'm far more a DC guy, but Marvel had Barry Windsor-Smith, Jim Starlin, and Steranko. I'll concentrate on them. I think those are all really good things to concentrate on. What do you think?
Oh, yes. Oh, indeed.
Yeah, can't go wrong with those three. He went on to say on our Patsy Walker episode, the Patsy Walker episode was sweet. I've always liked Hellcat, even though I used to mistake her for Batgirl.
Randy Caldwell also left us some art, which is up on the blog. He also mentioned how Mockingbird, I got it. She had brown hair and later blonde. Ladies dye their hair always. Of the Mockingbird episode, Count Dracula said, listening to this episode during a cross-country flight, I was surprised to hear my own voice in the stinger. Thanks for including me.
That's all you, man. Keith G. Baker, this is regarding the Mockingbird podcast, catching up on this great podcast. I mean, where else can you find info on Prairie Roofies? That is a very good point. That has to be the first mention ever of Prairie Roofies, right? We can stick that on our resume. Pluto is the Roman god of the underworld. The Roman Empire stole the Greeks' pantheon of gods. Hades was renamed.
A little clarification on our Pluto issues in that episode. Also, the Mockingbird episode, Siskoid said, my first exposure to Mockingbird was the West Coast Avengers miniseries, and I've liked the character ever since, even after she broke up with Hawkeye, which I remember being upset about. Seeing these two fight was kind of like seeing your mom and dad going at it, wasn't it? I don't know, maybe I'm a big romantic or a distraught child of divorce or something. The details are fuzzy right now, but I can check after work. But I think Bobby did get her revenge on Phantom Rider in the 2010 Hawkeye and Mockingbird miniseries. The writer possessed like two of his descendants in that and gets exercised for his trouble. I just don't remember what part Mockingbird plays in that exactly. All I remember is that she was badass throughout, and despite the weird-looking glasses, it made me fall in like with her all over again and followed her to Secret Avengers.
So when he says, seeing those two fight, it was kind of like seeing your mom and dad go at it, wasn't it? I don't know, maybe I'm a big romantic or a distraught child of divorce or something. Was he describing himself or all of us?
I didn't have any divorce in mine.
Oh.
Just bad people staying married and being abusive to each other.
Right.
We all come with our damage.
Yeah, we've all got our damage. That's how we all end up reading comic books. All right, Ange said regarding the Mockingbird podcast, thanks for a great show. I have very little comic knowledge of Mockingbird. When she, quote-unquote, returned in Secret Invasion, I had no idea why it was such a big deal, so thanks for dedicating a show to her. I also read the CBR article, or tried to. Once it went into long detail about Kazar, I abandoned it. I was floored by the Western story with her. What a creepy story, and glad she just ended it. And Hawkeye's response to the reveal that she did that seemed a bit too quick. He didn't even hear her out. Crazy. All that said, I'm thrilled that she is being portrayed by,
I'm going to go with Adrienne Palicki.
Adrienne Palicki on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I would watch her do her taxes. Seeing her kicking butt with batons is even better. I wish everyone would stop talking about Man of Steel. I'm trying to forget it. Amy Adams' portrayal of Lois was probably the strongest thing in the film, so I wouldn't mind seeing her in the other DC movies. I will say again, I was given the Man of Steel Blu-ray for Christmas last year. It has been on HBO ad nauseum. I have yet to watch it again. In contrast, I've popped in the DVD of Superman Returns and watched the plane rescue scene at the end of the toss the land mass into the sun scene a couple of times. Thanks for a great show.
I think when you're comparing watchings of Superman Returns and Man of Steel, nobody wins, everyone loses. I'll also add in, too, that I've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Mockingbird has definitely spruced up the show. If you haven't been watching, might be worth a second gander.
Really?
Yeah. They've added a number of new characters, and considering that my main issue with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was that I was spending a bunch of time with characters I greatly disliked, and it took the twist of the Hydra involvement to make them interesting. Well, now they're bringing in these new characters that are just plain interesting. Maybe if they'd done that from the very beginning, I wouldn't have minded that stalling period for the first 3/4 of a season.
That was my problem, is that we watched the first episode or two, and I was like, I hate every single one of these people. They're all terrible. Yeah, they're all not very good actors, and all of their characters are pretty dumb.
I've seen Palicki do a number of things. I'm not a fan of hers necessarily, and I'm not sure how much she's acting as Mockingbird, or maybe she's just being natural, in that role, but she comes across much more natural than I've seen her in other roles. And she's very charming. Plus, she has an ex-husband character who is another new arrival on the show, who was an Australian mercenary. So they have some pretty good banter going between them. It's much better energy between those two characters than pretty much anybody else in the other series. But it also helps that one of the guys from the first season turned evil and placed other characters into situations that make them more interesting through the damage he inflicted upon them.
That sounds cool. Yeah. Does she actually have the stabs?
Yeah. Well, they're more like those telescoping numbers Clint Eastwood had in Clear and Present Danger. But she kind of makes this wing motion with her arms that sells the Mockingbird aspect. And I think they've actually used an explanation in the show is that she's a quick learner. So she's like mocking people by picking up their own fighting techniques or languages and kind of throwing it back at them. So the show gives you an explanation for the name, even though, come to think of it, I'm not sure if they've actually referred to her as Mockingbird on the show yet.
Okay, that was my next question, if they're actually calling her Mockingbird yet.
Mostly they just call her Bobby. I think the Mockingbird name's popped up, but I can't say for 100% certainty.
All right, cool.
Well, carrying on with more Mockingbird talk, Martin Gray said, thanks for another fun show. Though having read Brian Cronin's Mockingbird piece at CBR2, a lot of it was pretty repetitive. Hopefully this will be a one-off. If you want to do a character or someone has just handily got there first, do someone else. If it's your spin I want, lads, your madness. Moments such as the outburst over people forming whole opinions on films based on trailers, that's the stuff. The knitting together of unnamed psychic brunette and Barbara Bobby Morse worked not at all. I don't know why Marvel didn't just leave PB to one side until someone had a story for her. Not everything has to be tied up. See also Elf with a Gun as Android and the Rampaging Hulk was all Barit's movies. Now you ask for requests on Futures Focuses. You didn't? Darn. Nighthawk, please. CJ also said of this Mockingbird episode, there was only one thing I don't like about Avengers 2 trailer, is that when Thor drops Mjolnir, it bounced. Why? No. According to the Marvel database, it says, although I'm not clear why, Barbara's penchant for taunting her opponents in battle earned her the codename Mockingbird, though not before she had spent a short period as a costume operative called the Huntress. CJ also said of the Patsy Walker episode, just got done hearing episode 18. I was not expecting all the info. I got lost. I'll have to re-listen to that one. After he did, he said, Patsy, Hetty, and Vera discuss Patsy's history. I mean, Mac, Fix It, and Frank. This one is catty. Fellas, where's the love? Finally, he says, Patsy Walker has a history kin to Game of Thrones, mind blown, and features, giant explosion art, which is available on the blog.
All right, our next comment is from Charlton Hero. This is also regarding our Mockingbird podcast. He says, love the show, guys. As for that Hawkeye miniseries, I was a big fan of it when it first came out. Heck, I even blogged on it a while ago. Marvel miniseries were always cool, and it's become somewhat of a lost art, don't you think? Laughed out loud a few times when you brought up the Mockingbird Black Canary comparisons. You even called MB Canary a few times accidentally. Either way, great show. Yes, those were totally unintentional screw-ups, and I think there was even one that we didn't catch when I listened to it. It was right before we changed topics on something. I called her Black Canary again, and I caught it the last time I listened to it. I was like, man, it's. And what's funny is that I've never read anything Black Canary. I've only read Mockingbird stuff, and I was screwing it up.
Yeah, I think it's a secondhand prejudice. You maybe picked that up from me, but I actually did catch those instances, and I guess I could have gone in and pasted in Mockingbirds to fix it, but I thought it worked better as it was.
Oh, no, yeah. It works fine the way it is. It just drives the point home.
Time Travel said, the Patsy Walker cast was amazing.
Thank you. Martin Gray, this is regarding our Patsy Walker podcast, says he's busy listening in the gym, loving the Patsy Walker talk. What a fantastic podcast, one of my favorites of the year. I knew a little of Patsy's pre-superhero setup, but you gave us so much more fascinating information. I have to say, though, that the dismissals of the Peanuts from point of nice sounding synonym of ignorance need correcting. There's a heck of a lot more to the adventures of the little folks than simple repetitive gags. Okay, there were a hell of a lot of repetitive gags, but the variations were sublime. How many times did Lucy pull that American football away? How many times did the great squash fail to show? Yet year after year, Charles M. Schultz surprised millions, made them laugh. To compare it to the ultra lame family circus, that's just upsetting. Do me a favor. Try one of the 2-week daily strip sequences, Sally Brown and the School Wall, say, or the sacking of Miss Oathmar. I find them gloriously wonderful little stories. You may not, but at least give them a chance. Or just read all of 1968. That was a fantastic year for the strip. Americans really seem to get het up about older guys dating younger girls, bringing up statutory rape at the drop of a hat. They're of legal age. Anyone can have sex with anyone else, and it's not our place to finger point. If a May-September thing works, great. If not, it's a life lesson that hopefully involved fun on both sides. Patsy Walker strip you were talking about, though, didn't involve sex, just daft teenagers fancying an older guy, a war hero, and the man being flattered by the attentions. The idea that a swoonsome, sophisticated older man was a common romance theme back then, wasn't it? This feeds back into Patsy's crush on Reed Richards. I never realized the Beast's blue fur was meant to be all black, and I don't think many of the writers did either. Remember all of those times he's been referred to as the bouncing, bounding blue beast on panel? Anyway, thanks. I'm especially impressed with the use of music and sharp editing.
Thank you. Yeah, the thing is I think Beast needs to be blue. It's Nightcrawler that probably should have adapted to a straight up black. It never made sense to me that he was blue and Beast was blue and they were on the same team. Nightcrawler was the guy who worked from the shadows and was supposed to be demonic and scary. Beast is supposed to be this big cully guy, or at least that's what he became.
Right, but isn't Nightcrawler related to what's her name?
Mystique.
Mystique?
But that was a retcon. That was years down the line.
Yeah, your face is a retcon. It works now, damn it. And he brought up the fantastic point that she was swooning over Mr. Fantastic by taking his picture and, sleeping with it every night. You know what I mean? That's all it was. Harmless stuff.
As for Peanuts, I bought at a flea market when I was a kid, a book of basically the earliest Peanut strips from the late 50s. And I love that book. When Schultz was telling stories that really reflected childhood with a poignancy, allowing the children to have a maturity that we normally don't allow in pop culture. It was a great strip. It's just that by the time you get into the 70s and especially the 80s, he was tired. He didn't really have anything else to say. And that's the stuff they kept recirculating when he passed away, and they just kept reprinting the strip as a daily. If they'd gone back to the earlier material, my feeling, the better material, the stronger and rougher stuff, it would have been great. And actually, IDW... one of the things that put them on the map as a publisher was publishing hardcover collections of Schultz's Peanuts. And I don't really want to spend the money to get it in that format, but I'd love to get a great big fat $100 omnibus that collects a few years worth of the strip. Just the early stuff for me, though, I think. Yeah,
I think that was kind of my point, that in the podcast itself, that there's nothing wrong. Just because characters interact with each other for a long time and it's nice, clean fun, doesn't mean that at some point it's going to totally devolve into Charlie Brown beating the hell out of, Lucy or whoever the other characters are. You know what I'm saying? That's all I was trying to say.
So on to Ange. He was going to listen to the Hellcat podcast as soon as possible because he loved the character. Once he did, he said, "Such a great show. Loved listening in my office yesterday. Thanks for this episode as some serious knowledge was obtained. I knew vaguely about the pre-superhero stuff with Patsy Walker, but it was great to learn the nitty-gritty and hear reviews of some actual stories. I suppose I lean more with Mr. Fix-It in that the portrayal of these girls in the comic. They were in the crowd I did not run with in high school. I was pretty poor and definitely not cool. And yet I would probably have read these stories and liked them because as much as I disliked being on the outs with that crowd, I definitely wouldn't have minded being in that crowd and usually pined for those girls. Sigh. As for Hellcat, my earliest recollections of her are in the Defenders and issues numbering in the 90s and 100s. I thought she had a cool look, the bright yellow suit just visually slick, especially in contrast to the usual cat slinking in the shadows, so wearing black usual outfit for feline-inspired characters. And as a young boy approaching adolescence, I was also intrigued by her eventual transformation into an actual Hellcat in Defenders 100. She was hot, literally. I'll tweet some pics. Defenders number 100 was also a mind trip for me at that tender age. Damon Hellstrom actually fights Satan. Bizarre. Thanks for the podcast. I now get why Satan had a hold on her. And the whole mother in comics writing her stories in comics who wrote comics sounds like Hellcat Inception. She recently has been a co-star in Charles Soule's She-Hulk, where she plays a sort of impetuous, playful, but very tough hero. Thanks again. And Ange did tweet those pictures. They're on the blog, as is a image of a book that a vintage to Patsy Walker that Martin Gray picked up. Oh, and he tweeted a piece of original art that he won in a raffle.
There's a lot in this comment.
Yeah, we actually forgot the part where we were going to mention how we ourselves were poor and uncool, but we'll have to get to that another time since I'm just dropping this in the middle of the recording. Well, the thing is, I can't get into that too much because I have not read a ton of Patsy Walker stuff outside of the stuff we've recently covered, and I want to. And we're definitely going to go back to and do some stuff with Hellcat. So if I try to get into this material now, it'll detract from what we're going to do later on.
Yeah, and I thought that convention sketch was really nice.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
Please go check it out. All right. Our next comment's from Siskoid. This is also in regards to the Patsy Walker podcast. He says, possibly my favorite episode yet. It was hilarious as well as informative. And I love Hellcat, just never saw any of the original teen humor / romance comics. Now I have to seek them out too. At the end of the OOs, there was a number of fun, charming Hellcat Patsy projects I'd be happy to recommend. The 2008 Hellcat miniseries as her the only hero in the Avengers Initiative sent to Alaska. It's weird and filled with Inuit mythology, but it also has Patsy pages with advice for girls, love diaries, and such. I wish it had gone to series. The next year, she was a member of Marvel's Sex and the City cast in Marvel Divas, another mini full of charm and character, mostly a comedy, but it did deal with real issues like Firestar's cancer scare, when you're a human microwave, you know, he says in parentheses. Like Ange said, she's popped up in She-Hulk as Jen's PI, and her appearances have been great. Did you mention Valkyrie? Despite appearing in the all-female Defenders a while ago, she's full of untapped potential. Could she be up for soon on #Frank's agenda?
Well, we have to get into the early Defender stuff. We're not quite there yet. I honestly think we'll revisit Hellcat in the Defenders, which starts around the 50s. Because she had a relationship with Valkyrie, that may come up, but I think we'll have to work backwards from her relationship to Hellcat before we get to the Valkyrie material.
The story of her going to Alaska sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, the good thing is the 2008 Patsy Walker Hellcat miniseries is on Marvel Comics Unlimited, as is the first issue of Marvel Divas. And I believe that the She-Hulk series will be there in total eventually. Unfortunately, this book was canceled as of this month, so it'll only be a 12-issue run. There's actually a few other miniseries and appearances that are on Marvel Unlimited that I was able to dig up that I hope to address, but it feels like we should go and look at the Defender stuff first. I don't want to jump that far ahead quickly. So it depends on how much of Defenders material we dig up that's worth visiting on a podcast to see how quickly we can get to the more modern stuff. And there was also the 2000 miniseries with Hellcat. I picked up the individual issues, but again, that's so late in her career that it'll probably be a little while before we get to that one. Unfortunately, not available on Marvel Unlimited.
All right, our next comment is from Count Druncula. Patsy Walker, this is also in the Patsy Walker episode. Great episode, fellas. Never fail to amuse us when one of you comes to a screeching mental halt because of some absurd bit of comics history, even relatively contemporary history. How many times did Mac's mind break in this episode? I will say at least 6 times.
Appropriate, given it's Hellcat.
Yeah. Well, and Archie. The Archie stuff broke it also.
If I had gotten the Patsy Walker episode together sooner, we would have covered Afterlife with Archie. So we'll have to try to get around to that at some point in the future.
All right, he continues. One of the iconic archetypes that Marvel Studios doesn't have now is the young, impetuous hero. They don't have Spider-Man or Johnny Storm, and it would be nice to see this type of youthful energy and experience collide with the entrenched Avengers characters. The movie universe could fill that gap with Nova, the new Miss Marvel, or Hellcat. I love your ideas for rebranding Hellcat as the young cosplayer wannabe hero that makes good. It's a great hook, and I think it would appeal to tons of younger fans, particularly women. Thing is, I think a lot of those same characteristics could be used by a new, Kamala Khan version of Miss Marvel. Marvel could tap into that viewer demographic with either one of these young supers ladies. Our next comment's from Eternal Rage. Thanks to you dudes for giving us something to comment on. So great. Fix-It calling for blood from Patsy's papa, wanting to see him swinging in the wind, a call for blood to liven up the story. I actually want to read the allowance-raising story, livelihood hanging on a shaky stock market. Just imagine living back then. He continues, God damn it, whose broad idea was it to discuss 90210? Damn it, Mac. I can get behind Married with Children, but 90210. Amazing Adventures 13, good addition to a great series. Loved the Gray Beast. Forgot Patsy was around that time. Great Tom Sutton pencils, if I recall correctly. I forgot about Orca and Moondragon, and Moondragon's flare-up, as Frank stated, which I think was horribly offending. That wasn't my...
I assure you, if I had given it at least half a second more thought, I would have come up with a more diplomatic way of phrasing that.
All right.
I think I'm going to owe Moondragon an episode just for saying that.
Part I've been waiting for, Marriage to Damon Hellstrom, and the comic within the comic part of the continuity. Really like Kyle Holt's work, especially his Simon Garth mini. I felt exactly like Mac with the Archie bullet string theory thing. Afterlife with Archie is great, and Sabrina is fantastic. Oh, Mantis, don't break Frank's head. You've got your own problems. Let's save them for another day. I think I remember a horror-centric Hellcat story somewhere. I think that needs to happen in a modern setting. Another great episode. I think it's cool that the longest episode isn't about an A-lister, but about a female character who has the utmost potential to be an A-lister if handled correctly and taken seriously. I've always had a liking for Hellcat. She just has to come up with the proper direction to be used in the company. I think a horror mini would get the ball rolling. You made Patsy Walker more than just Hellcat to me. I was aware of some history, but her series not being canceled through the 50s is a big testament to the character's longevity and why she needs to be used seriously today. Finally, thanks for the great informative episode on a character that hasn't received her dues for keeping Marvel alive. Thank you for the excellent comment.
Yeah, that was great. All of the comments were great. I was really happy with how the episode turned out, and I'm pleased. A lot of times I'll put a lot of work into something, and nobody will pay any attention to it, like my blogs. So for us to all get together, and I think everybody was really on their game this time. I think that Mr. Fix-It brought the game. I think that him bouncing against Mac was outstanding. Everything worked really well with that episode, and I had high hopes for it, considering finding all this information and finding out what a terrific character this was without ever being familiar with Hellcat prior in any substantial way. So I think the character's awesome. I really enjoyed the episode. I think everything turned out wonderful. I'm glad everybody else liked it as well.
Yeah, and I just want to say that, Frank, you did a fantastic job editing this thing, and I thought the musical cues were all great. I love the Mickey Mouseketeer opening. So just so you guys know, we don't know that he's doing all that stuff, so whenever we listen to it for the first time, it's awesome for us to listen to that too. He really puts in a lot of time and work into these things, because we want to differentiate our sound. We don't want to just be a bunch of guys sitting around talking about Batman, Superman, Captain America, Iron Man, and the X-Men. You know what I mean? Like we want to make sure that there's something different about our podcast, and I think a lot of the editing you put into this really helps define our sound. So thank you for your hard work, sir.
Well, thank you. But another thing, though, is I can't do it without you guys, honestly, because I can chop things to pieces, but if I don't have the energy and the personality and the chemistry, which can't be replicated anywhere else, that, it's like a part of, for me, the main enjoyment of the show was listening to you and Fix-It just going at each other. It was a blast. I thought that was funny as hell, and I can't do that without you guys. So we all love each other. Big group hug virtually on the internet.
Yeah, let's all pat ourselves in the back and let's get back to work and come up with more shit to read.
Except for Fix-It, because he ain't here as usual.
I'll send him a text.
Text a hug to him. Hugs and kisses.
I'll text him an emoji.
Hold on. Not too bad.
I'm not down with Patsy Walker. I'm down with that fucking Vixen, Hetty Wolf.
She's got a great name. Hetty Wolf is a good name.
Hetty Wolf is a fucking fantastic name. Hold on while I drink my flavored malt liquor.
Screwdriver.
It's flavored malt liquor.
It's flavored like a screwdriver. It's orange. It's tasty. That's why we killed most of it already before we even started.
I'm a legal machine.
Well, you should probably start over again since I was talking over you.
I'm a legal machine.
And you're not going to do the whole Welcome to the Marvel Superheroes podcast?
Welcome to the Marvel Superhero Podcast. I'm a legal machine, and with me is
Diablo Frank.
Yeah, and I just want to say that you, Frank, did a fantastic job editing this thing. I love the Mickey Mouseketeer.
Oh, shit. I lost you again.
Those little
hold on. I lost you at the Mickey Mouse thing.
No, I don't want to redo praising you because I'm going to have to fake. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, don't bleed to death. Thanks.